It'll be fine.
Looking right at you, John. How's my hair?
We're recording. Are you ready?
I'm blue shirt, black shirt. What does this work for you?
Yeah, it works. Does it work for you?
It's all good. Good. This is as handsome as I'm gonna get.
Do you feel like a little bit of like a kick of like we're doing a show together right now?
I do, yeah. I do. I'm so out, like my performer brain is so off that, you know, I'm gonna transition back into it.
You've been doing it the whole time. You played your role perfectly. Man, I can't get on this one. Alright, look at me.
I'm looking at you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is my friend Eli Weatherby.
Hi, Johnny.
Hey, Eli Weatherby.
Hey, buddy.
So we have been a comedy duo in our years in Chicago together. You may have heard of us or may have not. It was called Ice Bear.
It might have been something that popped up on your radar. I don't know.
It may have been.
Yeah.
Which is German for polar bear.
German for polar bear. They're very popular over in Germany. I've been several times.
Oh, they love them. Canute, they're very big into their polar bears.
Oh, God. Canute the polar bear. He's bigger than Santa Claus.
Yes, he is. He is.
Yeah. And the great thing about Canute is he brings you gifts regardless of whether you're good or bad.
So part of my introduction for Eli Weatherby is Matt Damon in Born Identity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Eli Weatherby is a fair comparison to being a sleeper improviser somewhere else in the country that at a moment's notice can be woken up just like Matt Damon.
Activate Dreadstone. Zip zap zap.
Dude, it's so good to see you like posting some silly videos lately.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, just I got incredibly bored, and so I figured, why the heck not?
Yeah. So Eli's in Kansas, or was in Kansas, and
not in Kansas.
Is now not in Kansas anymore. In Montana, right?
Yep, I just moved to Bozeman, Montana.
How is that? It looks beautiful.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous out here. I moved out here and I'm working at a ski resort because my family are, well known for our skills on the slopes of Kansas. So I moved out here and get to live in the Rockies, and it's gorgeous. I take a bus to work every day up into the mountains, and I'm not going to lie, more often than not, I tear up because it's just,
Do you really?
It's so beautiful.
And it's so the opposite of Kansas.
Yeah. Actually, though, down in the valley, it kind of looks like Kansas if Kansas wasn't a shithole. It's like if people cared about Kansas and their nature. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been like doing these funny videos, and I feel like, how have you felt since like leaving Chicago? And like, it's like when you're like a creative person, like trying to find those different creative outlets, like during this pandemic, like I kind of like, in some way I'm like, don't even notice I don't have the outlet. And then all of a sudden it hits me one day. I'll be like, oh, I don't have an outlet to perform creatively.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, when I left Chicago, I was kind of like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I've had my share performing for a while. And I knew, when I moved back to Emporia, a good friend of mine from college is now the technical director of the college we went to. So, he's still big in theater and stuff. And we had some ideas about maybe we'll start doing improv shows and stuff and do this. And then, we never quite got around to it. And then the pandemic hit and you realize there's just nothing to do. It's such a small town. There was already nothing to do. All I
And now
could
there's
do
less of nothing to do.
now there's less of nothing to do. I've got it's negative energy. It just goes down. It's sucking all of your life force out of you. So I basically just started bothering my nieces and nephews. I would just stalk them and make them do bits with me all the time. And eventually, like, usually they love it, but after a while they're like, okay, you can go away now. We're done. We're done.
Who's your little nephew? What's his name?
Do what?
What's your nephew's name?
There's a few of them. There's Olivia, and then there's Marcus, Trey, and then Mia is the 2-year-old.
Oh, okay. There's one that's got your middle name, right?
Oh yeah, Marcus Eli. Yeah.
I feel like he's a little you in training.
Yeah, he's basically a cooler version than I am. He's just a cool me. I mean, it's weird to be jealous of 8-year-olds, but I am. I'm completely jealous. He's so much funnier than I was at that age. He's so much funnier than I am now. He's just brilliant. And I think at some point, either I will have to kill him or he will have to kill me.
Yes, a duel of swords.
But I mean, how has it been for you up there in Chicago?
Oh man, I don't know. It's interesting because, like, I would say the city is, lacks a lot of what makes it useful.
Yeah.
And so it's been okay. I've been building this van, renovating it.
I've heard about this van.
I hurt my finger so fucking bad before we got on this call. You probably can't see it on this call, but I have a splinter that is going into my nail bed, under my nail, into my nail bed, more than halfway down. I can't get it out. I pulled part of it out and it broke. I was like trying to cut away at it. And it was like the first half hour was constantly throbbing. And in that moment made me decide I was against torture.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I felt like just a little bit of pain I felt. I was like, nobody should be being tortured.
It's awful. You can't do that to people.
You can't. This wasn't even that bad.
No, it is bad. It's so bad. Don't downplay your pain, Jonny. It's so bad. Under your nails and that quick.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I will tell you this. When it went into my fingers, I crumpled to my knees and swore and begged for the pain to stop. Like literally crumpled to my knees, Eli.
I'm done.
And Matt's at work, and I wanted my husband to feel bad for me, but he was also like having a rough day, and I'm like, I should text him that I have a splinter under my fingernail. But I just wanted somebody else to feel bad for me at the time.
Oh, that's awful. So did you just quit for the day? Did you quit working on your band for the day?
Well, I'll be back at it. I'm putting in the ceiling, and boy, learned this as I'm learning how to do every trick in the trade by building a van. Everything takes me 4 times longer than I think it should.
Yes.
4 times.
Yeah.
And if I do the math and I multiply that out 4 times and make that my new standard, it's going to be 4 times longer than that. It's whatever I think it's going to be. It's 4 times longer then.
Yeah, you're always going to overshoot your goals by 4 times the amount of time.
Yeah, it takes me that much longer to do stuff. It's insane.
Is there a favorite part of building the van that you enjoy? Like, was it the electrical? Was it the building the bed?
Okay, so I'm only 2. I got like the roof, the floor, the electrical in. We're going to talk about performing at some point, but I have to tell you about this van. And okay, electrical was awful, except for I had a friend who helped me, and it was like great. And like I learned a lot, but it was just mentally so overwhelming. Like wanted to melt down while my friend was doing it for me.
Yeah.
Like volts and watts and thicknesses of wires and circuits and where things should go. Whew. But I think I learned quite a bit, which is cool.
Oh, yeah. It's infinitely fun to learn about. My brother's an electrician, and I love just hearing him talk about it. But anytime I try to do it myself, I just want to electrocute myself within like 30 minutes, and I give up.
Yeah. But I mean, like after the fact that I've done this work, I've had to go in and like troubleshoot some things, and now it feels good. It's like, I know what to do. But like the stress of like trying to like get this stuff done. The most fun so far is yesterday. I took a whole bottle of foam spray and I sprayed it all over a wheel well. I mean, all over a wheel well.
Oh, I got in there. Yeah.
It is so squishy. It's just so satisfying. It's like, those like, do you like follow any of those Instagram like art people?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's just like things to watch when you're high or something. That's what it is.
That's just
but I was completely sober.
Is the foam insulation, or were you cleaning off the wheel wells?
Oh, no, I was adding foam insulation on top of the wheel wells. Yeah, from a spray can. It's like great stuff or whatever that's called.
Yeah.
So Eli and I want to say this. Not only have we improvised together, we've done sketch shows, multiple sketch shows. One was called Monomyth. The Youth Pastor sketch show.
The Youth Pastor, yes.
I can't remember the name of that anymore.
It wasn't Youth Pastor?
Maybe it was Youth Pastor. It was something. I don't know.
What was it called? I don't know.
Doesn't matter. We were two youth pastors. But we've also written a pilot. And Eli, I feel like we are finally the correct age for the pilot we wrote.
I was just thinking about that the other day, and you're absolutely right. Because those guys in their mid-20s, it doesn't work. But when they're in their mid-30s and their bodies are falling apart and their hair is falling out and they have nothing else in their life, that's those characters.
Yes,
that's who it is.
They hadn't lost enough yet. They hadn't tasted enough loss, right?
No, we didn't understand what it really meant to force yourself to be joyful. It was too easy for us to have joy at that age. But now you chuck in another decade of losses and it makes sense.
When you think you're having a down day when you're 25 is not the same as when you're having a down day when you're 35.
Not comparable at all.
You've got a little perspective.
Yes. Yeah. You've got a lot of perspective. What was the name? Life Coach. Life Coach was the name of that pilot for that series that we came up with.
Two overzealous teachers, instructors, life coaches, who really thought they could speak into any occasion or any person's life at any moment or at any event.
Exactly. They were so sure of their own enlightenment and need to make everyone else's lives better that they knew they could just step into any situation and say, hey, this is what needs to be happening for you.
All right, so we're going to record it this summer, considering we're finally of age.
Yeah, it's going to come out in audiobook format. And then maybe we've been talking to some Japanese animators. We're thinking about getting a manga going. I think it would really blow up over in Tokyo.
So we've done a bunch of shows together. Looking back on all of them, I wanted to ask you favorite memory or favorite memories. And this could be the same as your favorite memory, but also like worst, most uncomfortable performing moments.
Ooh, these are good questions. Man, one of some of the favorites, anything that happened at Upstairs Gallery.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say that. Shout out to small theaters, right?
Yes.
Anything that happens in those small spaces as a performer, it feels a little more special, almost, right?
Yeah, it feels so much more rewarding, and like you connect with the audience so much better. And
you literally did, because that space was so well lit.
Oh yeah,
like the audience really was. It felt like you were performing in a living room. Really,
exactly. Yeah, it was so cozy and intimate, and lent itself so well to our stupid format where we're just like trying to force people to have this emotional connection, that it really did. It just turned these people into captives. It was such a great space. But yeah, one of my favorite memories is the show where we must have been testing out some sketch material.
I know you're going to say, because it's the first thing that comes to my head.
Oh, it was Go to Sleep Little Baby for Monomyth. And we ruined this poor man's, what was it, velour jacket with our whipped cream. That was the first all over the audience.
That is the first thing that will always come to my head.
He was so angry.
Here's the exception: is like we had a couple awful shows there, right?
Sure.
Yeah. As we may have had anywhere, as anyone would, when you have 3 people in the audience. And I think that was one such show where it was already like I don't know if the audience had bought into what we were doing. And then we got Cool Whip on this guy's jacket.
And he was rubbing it. I think that was the only time in my life that I've actually seen someone leave in a huff. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it happen. And that man, he left in a huff.
It was probably a couple splatters, right, of Cool Whip?
Oh, yeah.
It was, it's a sketch show. Of course there's going to be Cool Whip at some point. Yeah. Don't sit in the front if you're like that worried about Cool Whip.
Exactly. You know what? I think it's his fault. It
certainly was.
Sir, if you're out there and you hear this, we're not going to apologize. You come to an Ice Bear show, it's like Gallagher meets the Sex Pistols. You know, it's punk rock. It's messy. Some fruit is going to get smashed. Wear a tarp.
So tell everybody what this bit was, because boy, did I recycle it a number of times.
Oh yeah. We got a lot of mileage out of this bit.
This bit was, oh boy, I don't know if it originated with an additional caveat, though it changed. It was just us very provocatively dancing slowly and provocatively to Go to Sleep Little Baby from Oh Brother Where Art Thou soundtrack.
Yes. The sirens.
The sirens, yes.
Yeah. Go to sleep, you little baby.
Yeah. And it ended up with basically like us barking at each other, having what would seem some sort of like orgasm on stage, like a spiritual one.
A spiritual orgasm.
Not that they aren't.
Most times it was.
Not that orgasms in general aren't spiritual, but it was. We didn't come. Yeah. I didn't come.
You didn't come.
I don't know. I can't speak for Eli.
Nor deny.
After barking a lot, we pulled out whipped cream. We sprayed it in our mouths, and you get the bit.
You get the gist.
You get the gist. I don't know if you get it as a joke, but you get the gist of the performance art that happened, and that's when some whipped cream splattered on this guy's coat.
It was a few specks. Just a few specks.
And he literally did work himself into a tizzy. Like he pulled out like a napkin or a Kleenex or something. He was like, and he got a huff.
I feel like he was an adjunct
reviewer.
English professor. Like that's the vibe I got from him. Like a young 23-year-old adjunct English professor who
he thought he was doing something more important than he was in life.
Yeah. He probably left and went straight to a wine bar.
Oh man. Whew. Ever think you're?
But yeah, that was.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's probably one of my favorite memories. Just for that shared experience of. I mean, there's so many times when improv's going well that there's that emotional and mental connection that you have with each other when you're performing. It's like that telepathy that's happening. And I know it was like we both saw that whipped cream hit that man's jacket at the same time. And we could feel from us that energy of, oh no. But then just keep going, just push through it. and then getting to reconvene after the show and just talk about it.
We should have stopped and made the rest of the show about his coat.
Yeah.
At that point, that would have been the right thing to do.
Yeah. If we were as wise as we are now, we would have just stopped and
celebrated the coat, first of all.
Celebrated the
because
coat.
It had some good years before it got that whipped cream on it.
Yeah. Yeah. But worst memory, I don't have not too many. I mean, we had so many bad shows, but they fade in your mind with time. I feel like we did a battle of the band style duo, something at Comedy Sports.
Oh yeah, anything that's set up as a competition in improv is the worst.
And none of those. I think we did a few of those,
which is all of. That's actually what Comedy Sports is.
Oh yeah,
set up as a competition.
Exactly. Yeah, but just not for us.
It's
just not
for that.
That's
not that space. Not that venue.
That's one of those where I remember performing and just feeling icky the entire time. Like I sometimes like when improv goes bad, like it feels like an old gym towel has been thrown on your body.
Yeah.
Like that sticky, musty feel. That's that feeling I get.
Yeah. And it feels bad because it's like you're asking the audience to enjoy something they're not enjoying.
Yeah.
And you're asking, and then it can turn into this thing, and maybe this is why it becomes bad, there might be a part of you that's asking for affirmation.
Yep.
And it's like, that feels dirty.
Oh, it's disgusting. It's a disgusting feeling that, please like me.
Yeah.
Please like what I'm doing.
Which is you just have to always kind of set yourself up not to be in that mindset. Right? If you are ever in that mindset, which is like the hardest mindset to shake during an audition or something that's like a competition, right? Of like, I want you to like this. That's the worst. Yeah.
Auditions are the easiest place to get into that mindset because it's literally what it is you're going in there asking for them to like you enough to give you a job or give you a place on this team.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes I'll have a good audition, but like fundamentally, like my capacity to audition well, I'm like running at 50%.
Yeah.
On average at most auditions.
Yeah. I think
it's like,
talking to other performers, I've kind of started to get the idea that you're never as bad as you think you are in your audition. And on the flip side, you're never as good as you are, as you think you are in an audition. Like there's no such thing. There's maybe no such thing as a great audition. It's just this disgusting ritual you have to go through.
Huh. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like whenever you can create for yourself on stage or in an audition, like the ability to not care, that's when you're at your sweet spot.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That's the greatest time when you can just go in there and, just realizing that it's temporary and it's not going to last. And then it's done once it's done.
Yes.
And just kind of surrender yourself to it.
And that it won't matter later on.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
I mean, if the pandemic has proven anything,
nothing matters.
Nothing matters.
Yeah.
Dude, I heard this. So I heard this perspective from some podcaster or something the other day, and he said something about the fact of like assessing what you want, and like, as we always should, but then also realizing that thing you may have wanted 10 years ago, you don't have to keep wanting it. Which is, I think, such an interesting thing to think of as a performer, right? Because you will change. Your goals will change. What you want will change. And like the mindset we might have had 10 years ago coming into doing comedy, and what you want from it versus performing now or doing something like comedic now or silly. It's those goals change, and they really should. And Absolutely. You're not beholden to it.
Yeah, and it's just a silly idea to think that you need to be setting your goals down at, your goals at 22. You're going to set those down in stone and then those are going to be the ones that you're going to be chasing and wanting to achieve for the rest of your life. Like you're not going to be the same person. And so absolutely right. What you want out of life and artistically and in any endeavor is going to shift. It's going to change. It's going to evolve. And kind of the sooner you can be okay with that and let that happen, I think the happier you're going to be.
Which is kind of like, I'm the sort of person who, like, when I know a philosophy or a theory, and I have that as a guideline in my head, I do better than just kind of knowing something intrinsically, experientially, or I should say. And so, like, hearing those words the other day, I was like, I already know that. I know that. But also, like, oh, that's good to, like, be able to articulate that. Especially with, like, I feel like so many people right now, we're all having, like, a change of, like, direction. And, like, having this, like, slowdown of, like, where am I geographically? Do I want to be there? Like, I've got all this extra time. Like, my husband, Matt, started busking this year and, like, playing his cello instead of, like, working some job he didn't care about. And, like, he's, like, just the feeling of people, like appreciating him, like, on the street and, like, and like him doing like little mini concerts for people has been so much more satisfying. And I don't know if he would have done it this year without a pandemic. Yeah. And like starting this podcast and doing building our van have both been things that I was like, I've got so much bandwidth to do something different. That like exactly. There's no way I would have built a van if I was just like going to work and like.
No, you would have never had the time to devote to it. And the energy, you never would have made yourself probably. Because it's something, I mean, I know it's something you've kind of talked about for a while, but it's always one of those kind of like distant goals, those maybe goals, those ones that are out there on the horizon.
Yes, but which is like so crazy that like, that we have these like weird goals like that probably weren't like our original goals or things that we were originally aiming for. That, for some reason, we're like, no, I can't do that. Yeah. That's more like, it's a better choice to stay in Chicago and do another 10 years of what I'm doing and I don't feel satisfied. Than to change and do something I want to do. Yeah. Because I have the security of barely making any money. And being familiar with my surroundings.
Can I ask you, how much of that for you, because I know what my answer is, but how much of that for you is being afraid to admit defeat or seeing it as admitting defeat? Like if your goals shift and you're, hypothetically going to run into somebody you knew from college and they ask you, hey, right. How's it going? And you're like, oh, I'm doing this now.
The old classic, you're at your high school reunion sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very little, I think.
Good on you.
I think. I don't know if I'm being completely honest, but I think it's very little. Isn't that funny that I'm not even certain?
Well, yeah, I think it's a hard question to really button down.
Right.
100% of your psyche, but I would agree with that. I mean, that's not a surprising answer for me. For as long as I've known you, you've been much better at being like, I'm going to get validation from myself. And that's a good quality you have.
I don't know if that. I know. Oh, go ahead.
What? I was just saying, I think that's always a quality that I've admired about you.
Oh, thank you.
You've always been much easier at just being like, hey, this is what I want to do. And you recognize that there's that, urge to please others and validate others. But you've been very good at being like, these are my choices that I'm going to make for me and what I think is going to serve me well.
Thank you. And I think that is actually only gotten a little bit better. I don't think that has always been true. And I actually mentioned this once before on the podcast of that. By the way, in like 5 minutes, it's going to kick us out of this meeting because it thought there was 3 people, and you can't have 3 people in a meeting because Eli called in from 2 different devices. So we're going to restart this in just a second.
Literally everything I do. I am poison, people. Stay away from me.
Such sweet poison, though. Tastes good going down. I was gonna say that my goals have shifted a little bit, and I realized that when like coming to comedy, of course, there's one whole side of me that just completely like likes comedy and the silliness and the fun and the joy of it and the creativity, right? But there's still this human nature part of like, ooh, wouldn't it be nice to get famous? Right?
Yeah. Everybody wants that.
Yeah, of course, right? And for me, there was a side of that was like, I would like to become famous and good at what I'm doing, so that if anyone ever found out someday that I'm gay, that it'll be this little safety net of like, oh, but Jonny's famous.
Oh yeah,
Isn't that what a weird psychological thing to tell yourself growing up? I mean, I probably told myself that a lot. Like, I won't lose people's love or affection if I've like become successful at something and famous,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And so like part of that striving for that was like hoping to be able to like retain affection in some weird, probably like back of my head sort of way. Like I probably wouldn't have even spoken that out to myself, like in my head, but like retrospectively, like that certainly was probably a thing for me.
That's what it was. And that's the thing. Like, we lie to ourselves so much. Like, we don't ever want to fully admit that there's that little ugly nugget of truth. Like, that real truth is I'm just doing this for love, or I'm doing this for validation. Because we think that it makes us a bad person. But it turns out, like, all of these quote unquote negative attributes everyone has. They exist.
Turns out, yeah. And better to confront them and like look at them and be like, oh, there's also this side of something.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever like fully one thing or the other, but like embrace it and then go for the fame you need.
Exactly.
Find any way you can get it. Even if it means getting in the Granville Gazette. Delivered on Wednesdays. It's a local newspaper.
The premier center of journalism for North Central Michigan.
So I've been spending a lot of time in Michigan.
Yeah,
because
beautiful state.
Beautiful state, especially up north.
Yeah,
like the trees all start to change. They become more like birch trees, and I don't know if aspens are what they are, like the type of pines, but they're very beautiful. Whatever it is up there, whatever type of tree it is beautiful. But anyways, I've been spending a lot of time in West Michigan, and in order to like work on this van in my parents' driveway. And it's very funny how being home, how old feelings come back and old ways of thinking.
Yeah.
And not to make everything in life about being gay or coming out or blah, blah, blah. But there's like this weird reality. I talked to my brother about this, that like every time like we go back home, there's this like level of like this baseline of like, oh, who you were before. And like how like you want to make people feel comfortable, and like, well, of course, for a large part of our lives, that was like being in the closet, right? That even though like I'm out or, okay, like being who I am, as soon as I'm like back home, there's a part of me that's like wants to fall back into some old habits.
Yeah, these habits. I had a similar experience when I moved back to Kansas. And what helped me is one day it clicked that I started to visualize it as a pinball machine. You know how the pinballs have the rails, the two little rails that guide where the pinball is going to go?
Stay on this analogy. Stay on this analogy. We're going to get cut off in like 2 seconds, I think.
Okay, I'm going nowhere. I'm riding the rails. I'm riding the rails all the way.
You're riding the rails. We've pulled back the little thing that shoots the ball.
The plunger. Yes, I know a lot about pinball machines.
It says less than a minute and it's still going. Oh, it's so tense, Eli.
I feel like I'm in a bomb scare caper. Like at the beginning of. I feel like I'm at the beginning of the X-Files movie. We've all seen it. We all know it. We love it. Mulder,
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it, and I don't know it or love it. You know what? Maybe this is just going to pass. This minute's going to pass, and it's going to keep saying this.
Oh, God.
Because there's no longer three of us in here.
This is...
When Eli fucked up and came in from two different devices. Nope. There we go. Yes.
Okay.
A pinball.
Yes. Let me just quick.
Wait,
Uh,
did you have some
this is
barbecue?
the,
Did you have a barbecue sandwich? We took a half-hour lunch break.
yeah. I need to cool down. But let me just say, me fucking up a Zoom meeting is a perfect example of Johnny and I's relationship, both working and otherwise. Johnny sets something up perfectly, and then I find a way to hamstring it, no matter what.
No, not all the time.
Most of the
All right, you were talking about being back home and like what that felt like,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I
and then you
just
got into
started
a pinball
visualizing.
analogy.
It's kind of a pinball. I feel like your ways of interacting with individuals and locations and situations are, to me, I visualize them as pinball tracks.
Damn.
And it's one of these things that no matter how much you try to grow and stuff, there's always this that pinball wants to fall back into that groove. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So when the pinball gets geographically somewhere in the game, it wants to be on that groove.
Wants to be. I've played pinball twice. I don't know if that's a good analogy. It works. Okay.
How long have you been out of Chicago and the performing scene?
I left Chicago in May of 2018,
Okay.
and then I don't. I think the last performing I did was the youth pastor at IO with you,
Yeah, that sounds about right.
which was. Did we do that in 2018? Was that spring of 2018?
I don't think of things in numbers and years. I just think of
Oh, I see. Okay, bro. Well, silly me.
that sounds plausible.
Yeah, it's been about 2.5, 3 years since I've really done any real performing.
Do you miss it?
I miss it all the time,
Yeah.
all the time. Yeah, I love it. It's just, yeah, I love it. It's such a validating and fun and fruitful experience to get
Yeah.
to just create art with people, and regardless of whether it's improv or theater or
Hmm.
music or anything like that. It's just so much fun.
So Eli, legitimately, you are like one of my no problem. Dare I say my favorite performer to watch perform?
Oh, okay.
And it's like the the energy you muster of like going into a character and like the switch and the power behind it. And here's the thing that like it's dumb, but like I'll see other people doing characters or like filming themselves doing characters, and like they're doing the character, but their eyes are them. They're there behind their eyes, and
Yeah.
they don't see the situation, they don't see the reality. But whenever you perform, it's like it carries through into your eyes in a way that like it's so weird, but you can see it when people are trying to think of the next line, or they're like thinking about how they're being perceived. But when you're like in it, it's like
Yeah.
bye bye sweet Eli. And there's so many times I'll see things happening like I'll see a performance thing that's like ridiculous, or I'll see an insane person in real life, and I'll be like, Eli could do this perfectly, perfectly.
I think what that is like, for me, being Eli is of like existing in the world as Eli and like trying to navigate it is very, very confusing, and I never seem to know what the right thing to say is or how the right way to react is. But when you're able to like drop into a character, like if you can like access that character, like this person knows how to exist and how to react in any situation. So I don't have to figure anything out anymore.
Isn't that wild?
It's
Um,
so,
I remember hearing you say that like one or two times about a job, about feeling uncomfortable at a job, and then you
yeah.
were like, you said something like, "I'm just gonna play a character while I'm there,"
Oh yeah. Anytime I'm at work, at any job I'm doing, like I don't mean this to sound like I'm fake or anything, but there's like a little bit of a mask that I put on, a little bit of some sort of character that I drop into to allow me to kind of get through the day.
Interesting.
Because otherwise it's too much. Does that sound as sad
No,
to you as it does to me?
no. Sounds like creative genius with a
that
touch of
is
sadness.
that is some deep mental illness
Well,
there.
I mean, we all do that, right? It's like we all like
Yeah,
shift our personalities depending on who we're around and what the situation is, or
yeah,
like we try to like meld to things, or we meld to what we think people want us to be, right?
right.
Which is probably like the wrong way most of the time to do it,
I
right?
don't know.
I don't. Is that true?
I'm not sure how else you get through the day with as many layers of responsibilities and types of people that we have to be in our day to day lives
It's
now.
just like that Amy Grant song, "Hats." Do you know it?
I don't know it. I'm sure
One day
you
I'm a
played
mother, one day I'm a lover. What am I supposed to do? Hats.
exactly.
Working
Yeah.
for a living, all because I'm driven to be the very best for you. Hats.
And yeah, that's it. That's my life right there. Hats. Just switching out hats.
I think that kind of ties back though hand in hand to like this thing of like you being like, I don't know how to be Eli in this situation, so I'm going to be just like Eli plus a little bit of a character or something, or like
Yeah. Yeah.
or Eli and this other thing, and it's like that's that thing where it's like we were just talking about this earlier, where it's sometimes it's so hard to self-diagnose, right?
Yeah.
I was like, when I was like, I didn't know if I was answering that question honestly. Like, I legitimately don't know. It's because we're like, we're so like multifaceted, and like, man, like honestly, your brain is in just such a different spot, no matter like how you're feeling, like biochemistry, like physical location and geography, if it's sunny out. I saw this picture today. We have like scrolling pictures of us on our family pictures on our television on our Chromecast. I saw this
Yeah.
picture of me and my brother, and we were like in onesie pajamas, being super like Aryan, like just bright blonde hair, and like hugging each other on the carpet and the floor. And I was probably like, I don't know, 3 or 4. And it's like, it's true that that was me, or that person grew into this person, right? That's true.
Yeah.
But to
Yeah.
say that I'm that person feels less true.
Yes.
Like any older version of yourself, like to say that you're that person anymore is like not as true as it is that you grew into this person. Am I saying that in a clear way? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Makes sense to me. Or the version of me that exists right
It's
now.
like the river that changes. Thank you, Eli. Yes, the version of you that understands it.
Yes. Yeah, that's just where it is yeah, people are just mutable. You know, we change throughout our lives and we're different. And as Amy likes to say, we wear a lot of hats.
We do wear a lot
But
of hats.
and it's just sometimes you can't hold yourself to the standards you set or the ideals that you set when you were younger, when you thought you knew what type of person you were going to be, because you're not going to be that person.
Yeah.
By the time you get to that point, the topography is shifted.
Yes. What do you think was true about you as a young kid that is still very true about you today?
I would say
what things are consistent.
One of the truisms for my character is I love making people laugh.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah. I love even almost even more than performing, interacting with an individual and off stage, not as a performer, and just making them laugh, and they're not expecting it and they're not ready for it, but just that sense of like joy and release that comes out of them. It's one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever experienced. And it's been that way since I was a little kid.
I love that. I feel that way too. Like literally today, like I walked into Home Depot to rent an electric brad nailer.
Look at us. What a couple of men.
What a couple of men, eh?
Huh?
And then when I walked out of there with my husband, Matthew, I say husband, so people know who I'm referring to as Matt. I was like, look at me carrying this tool out of here. And then I was like, and then I put the bag on my arm and I started carrying it like this and like spanking his butt in the parking lot. And like, I got all these looks from these people. And Matt's like, I don't think those guys like that over there. And I'm like, let them lap it up. I wanted to try both facets. First, I walked manly, like traditionally, conceptually manly. And then I walked manly.
Yeah.
With another man.
Yeah.
But I walked into Home Depot today and I was like, sometimes I get this thing where I'm like, especially when people are in like customer service jobs, I'm like, I want to snap them out of it.
Yeah.
I want them to not be like, I want to be like, Leslie, how are you? How are you doing? I noticed you're wearing Santa Claus socks. He's coming. Not that I actually do that. That's creepy. But I love that feeling of like just taking a little bit more time for like people who are in those like those jobs in those situations and like trying to make them giggle or laugh.
Yeah.
And like feel like I know it's only like a minute, but like that somebody doesn't just think of them as a way to get what they need or want.
Yeah. You're validating that you're recognizing
you're a person.
That you see them as a human being. And I think that's especially true with so many jobs that we have. We have to dehumanize ourselves either as a necessity for the job or as a necessity to cope and survive with the job.
Yeah.
And I think that is so tiresome. So when you can just pull somebody out of that, even for a second, it gives them some, a little bit of release, hopefully. Or they're just like, this weirdo keeps coming into Home Depot and talking about my Santa socks.
Wait, go back and say that.
It's so funny.
Say that again about like, how did you say that again? Like, you have to cope with the job.
I think capitalism, most times, the way our economy and lives are structured so much, either the job requires you have to put on that hat of I'm a customer service person. We're going to use it the rest of the talk. Amy's in here, but you have to use that. Like you have to, if I'm in a customer service experience or whatever job I'm doing, while I'm on the clock, part of Eli has to die. I have to stop being that, and I'm a representative of the company at that point.
Yes.
So you have to stop being yourself for that amount of time, or because you're being accosted by customers or other people that come in so much, like you have to shut off part of your humanity just to kind of survive, to protect yourself, like ensconce yourself in this coding of I'm just a drone here doing my job. And I think it's incredibly dehumanizing. And I think long-term it's very harmful. Yes. And we lose ways to just be ourselves and express ourselves.
That is so well said. And that's also so much of why I have never wanted a normal job.
Yeah.
I mean, that still happens like at my job where I'll teach improv or blah, 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 that you adjust yourself a little bit. But like, I know that feeling working those jobs where you're just like, a part of me has to die so commerce can happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's been pretty much every job I've ever had.
Yeah.
Throughout my life.
And I have this feeling too that like I always think about this with like trying to be professional, that it just makes everything feel sterile.
Yes.
Even as like a person or a performer, like just trying to be professional, like misses the point. Yeah. It just sterilizes everything down.
And not even like professionalism one, but I think so many jobs in America force us to be cheerful and chipper. And I think that's almost more damaging than just being professional, because it's so gross and it delegitimizes any sense of warmth that you would normally have in interactions with another person. I know I'm only doing this because my boss is standing behind me. I'm only doing it.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's fake. And it makes us resentful of real human interactions.
But now yes. But like I would say now I have so many customer service interactions where I would feel like 90% of the time, especially in Chicago, in a bigger city, I'm kinder to the person helping me than they are to me.
Oh yeah.
Because maybe like people are so burnt out on it that like you feel angry that you're expected to be that way, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's fully it, but
Yeah, it does. It is a two-way street because having worked in customer service so often or so many times,
yes.
I recognize a person who is bad at customer service, and I'm like, you being a dick to a customer isn't rebelling against the man.
Yeah, it's just you being a dick to
I
this
know you
person.
hate your job, but don't be a dick to me. I just needed some staples.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
That's not. Yeah.
If you're gonna like be brave enough to be a dick to your manager or
Exactly.
someone who's causing the issue.
You're not a rebel because you come in, yell at everybody and huff and puff at every customer you have to work with. You're just spreading that cancer is all you're doing.
Here's the thing though, don't you feel like whenever you like have an interaction with someone like at their place of employment and their humanity comes through more and you're like talking to them as a person, like don't you always feel like that's a more positive interaction every single time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh. So it's like we should we should be striving to do that. Dude, yeah. I had this go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think people want to do that, but what corporate America has started doing now is they recognize 20 or 30 or 40, however many years ago that, oh, people like it when we're warm. So now they're forcing all of their drone employees to like bring your own personality to it and be chipper. And it's disgusting. Disgusting.
Dude, an Uber is a different situation, right? When someone's working, because it's like you're in their car, blah blah blah. But I'll never forget this time I had this like Uber driver, and he literally drove me like for like 3 or 4 minutes, and like we just connected, and like. There was nothing like no sense of like I was into this person or they were into me or like romance or whatever. It was just we just really connected, and then when I got out of the car, it felt like it was like it shouldn't be done. And he goes to me, "Hey, I love you, man." Oh. And I was like, "I love you too."
It's a great moment.
It was a great moment. Like how many times do you have like little interactions like with that with someone? You're like, why do I have to step out of this car right now? Like, yeah. We talked about the people who helped us at Home Depot for like the next 45 minutes because like we got them being like silly and having fun with us, and like we're like, Matt was like, those two were just great,
right? You can have really. I love when you have a surprise connection with somebody, a complete stranger. It's temporary, it's ethereal, it lasts for just a little bit, and then it's gone.
Just like improv.
Just like improv. Look at that. You thought we were going off on a really long tangent? We were talking about improv the whole time, guys.
So Eli and I, before we used to do our shows, we'd like warm up in the back room, do really stupid stuff. And we would do like a blessing from the muses. Mm-hmm. And we'd semi-jokingly be like, let's love on that audience. But I think that's the mindset as a performer is like, let's make this audience feel special.
Yeah, I think that should be the mindset. Like that's kind of how we always operated, and I just kind of felt that way. Is I think performing is a little bit of a customer service role if you think about it. If you want to think about it in the form of jobs, is you've got people who, they took time out of their day to come in and get a ticket and sit down and hopefully be entertained by you. Why wouldn't you? I'm not saying you have to pander to them, but why wouldn't you want to give them a good, warm, positive experience?
Which is like speaks to the mindset probably you want to be in more of like giving rather than I need something from it. We talked about earlier about like in an audition, you needing something from an audition or like from a show, like a improv show that was like a competition, like needing to win. It's like that dynamic like just doesn't work when you're not in a place to care about the people you're performing for.
Exactly. I always want to be providing, not taking is how I want to do it.
Because it'll even like make you change your choices comedically, right? Like if your goal is like you're in a second city main stage audition, right? Mm-hmm. And you have 30 seconds to make the auditors laugh, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
or that's at least the pressure you feel like you have, right? Or something like that, where it's some short audition like that, and you feel like I'm trying to get something for myself versus I'm going to do what's best for the moment, the scene. Oh boy, did I lose you, Eli? Oh, there you go.
No, I'm still here.
The moment, the scene, the character, like maybe the scene needs me to like not do anything funny.
Yeah,
Right?
just exist.
Maybe,
be there.
yeah, maybe this, I need to play the straight man in the scene. And you get into those like moments when you're like in an audition or a competition and you're like, I need to get a laugh.
Yeah.
It always feels awful. It always feels awful.
It's disgusting.
Which is you probably shouldn't be thinking that way to begin with. This should just still be like, how do I serve the scene? How do I serve my partner? But it's hard to be in that mindset.
But I think it's also a natural outcome when you force scarcity on people.
Yes.
People are, if there's only a limited amount of food, folks are going to, or if they think there's a limited amount of food, people are going to fight over that food. If they think there's a limited amount of spots on that main stage or that conservatory, there's one job, no matter how good they want to be, they're going to fight with each other.
I want to go into some audition sometime and someone just like break a couple of pool sticks like the Joker. And just tell them the last person alive gets to keep their life or gets to keep the job. Because that's what it is. That's what
really
it is. It's that scarcity model.
Let's just be honest about it, guys. One of you's going to have to starve to death or bleed to death. I'll let you decide who it's going to be. I
had Andrew, I can't think of his last name right now. He runs Logan Square Improv on the podcast a few podcast episodes ago.
That was such a great episode. That opened up after I left, and it sounds like a wonderful place.
It is so cool. But one thing that he said that I loved in that episode was that there's no scarcity model for laughter when you're in a show. And like it's not like if your teammates are X funny, then you don't get to get as many laughs, or like there's not like a scarcity model for joy or humor when you're in a show. And like to operate like that as a performer, right? Especially like, in a show, not to mention an audition, is like completely the wrong mindset.
Yeah. And that's eventually why I felt like that's kind of like what lent itself to me deciding to leave, is I couldn't break out of that scarcity model when I went and auditioned or tried to perform. Like, I recognized that it was wrong and I could see that it didn't need to be that way. But after so many years, I couldn't quite stop banging my head against that wall. And so I was like, I just got to disconnect myself from it.
Yes. Yeah. And it's easy to like, again, like, you talk about like feeling a certain way in a space or a location, right? If you have you felt like you had a history of hiccups at a theater, right? It's hard to step your feet back into that theater and feel like you can do well. Or like, so funny. This is awful for me saying this, but there's been something so wonderful, Eli, about Matt and I like trying to like spend more time outside of Chicago.
Yeah.
And I got down to the area where like a few of the theaters are in town to go to Home Depot as I'm going there like every day to pick up stuff. And like there was this freedom of like, oh, I'm working on this project that is exciting and creative to me, and it has nothing to do with needing something from a theater or an institution. Yeah. And like me like feeling like going into this store and getting some stuff while I was in that area felt like the weirdest like fuck you of like, ooh, this sounds more exciting to me right now and more interesting than wanting to, do what I've done in the past. And it was being just in that location that made me always feel that intensity of like, ooh, I resent feeling like I want something from some of these theaters, right? Which is easy to feel.
Right. Yeah. In a lot of ways, it's almost impossible to feel that way. I know there's some people that are able to not feel that way, I think, or at least tamp it down, but I don't know how they get that skill. I don't know how they're able to do it. It's a superpower to me.
And to be fair, like I'm teasing out one aspect of how I feel about these theaters. This is not how I feel all the time, or is like not the overwhelming feeling in me. But there is that side where it's like, no matter what you're doing at any of these places, you can easily mentally make it not enough for yourself, or like compare yourself, or like, oh, I should be doing something better, or like I should be on another night of the week, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can always create that for yourself. Very interesting.
It's very interesting.
It's also
just got to works for you. I think. I loved going to any of the big IO, Second City. I always loved going to them as a spectator and an audience member, and seeing shows is such a wonderful experience. I loved it. I loved the energy. I loved the vibe. I love how each of them have their own little communities and everything. But going there as a performer was always the most stressful thing. And I could never shake that.
Yeah, that's interesting. But you definitely did it well enough to like have like fantastic shows. But maybe in the back of your head,
absolutely, I had great times there. I had great memories.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that's so empowering too about like so many people doing things now, whether it's on like YouTube or like becoming Twitter famous or something, is that you don't like need the permission of these places.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to beg them for something you want. You can just do your creative thing. And like
that democratization of creativity is a beautiful thing.
It is very much so.
Have you spent any time on TikTok?
No, I haven't downloaded it. Almost in principle. I don't know why. I love it.
I love it. There's so much creativity on TikTok.
Eli, what's your handle? What's your handle on TikTok? How do we find you?
Eels Weatherby.
Eels?
You don't need to TikTok. It's okay. I just play around.
The people want to see your work. The people want to see your work.
No, yeah, you can go there if you want. Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it work. I'd call it me dicking around.
Fans only.
But honestly, there are like Gen Z kids got it figured out. They can create things such amazing things on TikTok in 60 seconds, in 15 seconds. The things that they're able to do blows my mind.
And you know what? And I all the time, like the thing I consume more than like a show is I consume like I watch YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And I listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
And you watch people's like videos on like Instagram or blah blah blah. It's like I spend more time watching that stuff than a professionally produced shows.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just so much more digestible and easy to get to. I don't know. It's probably junk food. It's the entertainment equivalent of junk food sometimes, maybe. But I don't know. It's fun to step into this sphere where you've got someone who's not a polished, gives off that air of being a polished professional, and just seeing them sharing what they have with the world. It's fun to see. It's exciting. You root for them. Yeah. You want them to do well.
There's a couple Chicago improvisers that have been like posting some like funny ass videos, like very funny. And there'll be like moments of like that sort of stuff, or like some stuff that you posted that like ranks right up there with like some of my favorite sketch comedy, even if they're like these little moments.
Yeah.
Like I would say like some of my favorite sketch comedy would be like, what is it? Thank You for Leaving. I always forget the name of that show with,
I Think You Should Leave.
I Think You Should Leave now. Yeah.
So good.
That,
so good.
like the characters, like, like Portlandia, stuff like that, I love that stuff. But like, like some of like these like clips that people have been posting, and I think it's just because they have more like creative time right now during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like are so freaking funny. They're like as good as like a good sketch in one of those shows.
Yeah. And I think that it's definitely that combination of free time, which people have a lot of right now, that existential angst, that real dread that myself or my family members might die, or there's people dying around us. I think that produces a lot of great art. And then on top of that it's so accessible with technology now to just use your phone to, shoot video that's as good a quality as what they were shooting I don't know, 10 years ago on these big expensive, I don't know, Dragon cameras or whatever. It's amazing. We live in an amazing, amazing time.
I want to add a second variable to that. Third variable is not just people are dying around us and that sort of existential dread. The existential dread, like for those of us who have very little work right now, even if you're getting like government assistance or like some sort of unemployment, right? Like the first week after the summer, I was very busy working, teaching online in the summer. Then it like dropped down to like almost nothing. And like being like physically like sick to my stomach where everything I ate like made me sick for about a month. And I was like, I think this is stress. I don't think this is a stomach bug. Like I did the mental math. Like, oh yeah, this must be stress. It doesn't even hit me on stress until I think about what it is. I'm like, yeah. And like, just like, and you have all this time to think. And it's like, existential.
I hadn't thought about it quite like this, but there's like there's like population science, whatever you call it. But when people were dying, when an organism is put under stress, a lot of times it wants to procreate, create more of itself. And that's what we would have done, in past pandemics and past times of stress. But now
we would have been more horny.
Yeah. Instead of making babies, we're making videos. We're making art.
Damn.
Maybe. Just a thought. Just throwing it out there. I think that's better. We got enough people right now.
Eli Weatherby, this has been a delight. I would love to, man, every time like I get to work with you or do something with you, I just feel so like creatively like excited and like complete.
Yes, it's always such a joyous experience.
I'd love to find more times to either have you on the podcast or do something creative or shoot that or life coach pilot.
Maybe we should get around.
We are of age. All right, Eli. Thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Had a great time.
Stay on the line. I'm going to pretend to turn it off. Okay. Thanks for doing it, dude.
Oh, dude, that was so much fun.
It is kind of fun to like sit down and be like, we're recording.